Hi, it's Mike from Apollo, and I am back with lots of testing ideas. In the recent video, we talked a lot about seek and solve and pay and stay and these levels of the product fit model, which is just so great. If you're building something from scratch, it's enormously helpful. And I like that framing of our users seeking a solution. Are they already trying to solve it as a way of kind of reframing problem solution fit in the kind of perspective of a customer, but also it helps us orientate towards how we can test against them. So I have a really strong belief that the customer is the ultimate source of truth. When in doubt, go back to the customer and figure out what they need, what they want, what they're doing. And I'm going to share with you in this video a ton of different ways to test for this really early and help you avoid failure, because if anything, it's the aversion to doing these tests I see time and time again builds really wobbly, unstable startups, and often startups that are not successful. So I've got all my notes here, and I want to start with this idea first. You see a lot of people preoccupied with landing pages and search optimization and referral programs. And these are all parts of what we might call full funnel marketing. Now, what's particularly interesting about this is that you will get into a lot of conversations of if we can optimize this click rate here and this funnel here and this step here. And it could be that you're thinking about optimizing your funnel. And it could be that by tweaking those things, you solve most of your problems. But invariably, particularly for early stage companies, for startups, the source of the problem is way earlier. And what is happening really in your funnel, slow sales, not enough sales, poor momentum, poor velocity, are really the results, the outcomes, the symptoms of something happening earlier. And these earlier things can drive and determine the success of a startup. And I figured out these tests that you can do, and they might reveal to you not only how to build a better product, but also how to convert much better in your funnel. So let's get into it. At the heart of the first kind of testing question is this seek and solve idea. And I've got two kind of ways for you to start thinking about that. And it's rooted in, this is what the customer is doing today. Are they seeking a solution today? And is there enough evidence of that? Are they attempting to solve the problem today? And is there also evidence for that? These two questions are going to be at the heart of this video. I'm going to bring you into that. We're going to think about it. We're going to work on it together so that you can really get into this, find the evidence, so that you build the right product and have a great marketing funnel. Okay, so seek and solve. Now, what happens when we are in the early days of a startup and we're on that journey? People say, well, that's a nice idea. Oh, that sounds good, interesting, and cool. And we get a lot of that feedback from family, from friends, from our peers. And it's fine. But here's the thing where it's not fine. A lot of founders take that not only as encouragement, but as validation. And I'm here to tell you that is not evidence of a good product. It's nice, and I call it the nice trap. Because you hear things like, cool, I'm curious. Yeah, this sounds pretty good. I'm not even the customer, but it sounds pretty good. These are all part of the nice trap. Because you're like, oh, okay, positive, tick, I'll go and build it now. So I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I want to shift you from the nice trap. I want to get you into evidence, because we need to see real evidence of this customer, this prospect. Are they actually seeking solutions? And are they already starting to try solutions? So this seek and solve is really important, because what I want to share with you is that if they're already seeking and solving, selling to them is way easier. Selling to them is way quicker and much more efficient. So you need to go get the evidence, but if you do this, everything downstream of it is really, really interesting. Okay, let's talk about seeking. What are we talking about here? If people are seeking a solution to any problem, I want you to think about, well, where might you find evidence of that? Here on your computer. You don't have to go and talk to a customer yet. You can just go and sit on your laptop, on your computer, and figure out, are they seeking? And the classic one here, it's so insanely easy, is you go into Google and you just say, how do I? And it will prompt automatically pre-fill for you the things that people are like, how do I fix this? How do I solve this? Another great one is Reddit posts. There are so many different subreddits. I'm sure you'll find one that's pretty close to your product. So in just these two sources alone, and there's plenty more, you will be able to get some signal. Are people actually seeking a solution for this? So just have a go. How do I fix, insert your use case and see what you get. Go into Reddit, and the classic thing that you see on Reddit is, has anybody tried? Does anybody know of? These are really clues and signals for building a great product. Some other things you can do is look in LinkedIn and YouTube discussions. I've even got a cool one here. Look for job ads for people who are recruiting for others to solve this problem. So you can find it in job descriptions on job sites. Okay. Now, the other thing that is really interesting as part of finding these, are they seeking solutions, is you can look at trigger events or trigger signals that create this need. So it's winter, I need a jacket, I need a beanie and gloves and a scarf. That's the classic, it triggered the need. So then go and have a look for winter scarf, waterproof jackets, that kind of thing. So weather, new competitors, new products, whole new inventions, whole categories. I think AI has caused a gazillion trigger events. You can even think about government regulation. Maybe there's a change in tax. Maybe there's a change in compliance law and policy. Well, these things would all trigger events. Something that comes to mind recently is when the current US administration sort of indicated that they might do some things with cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. You saw a big rally on Bitcoin for a moment. That was the trigger. So for your business, there will be triggers. So you can go out and find those too, particularly when you're in that seek mode. So this is framing just what seeking looks like. I'll show you the tests that we can look for. The solving is really interesting space. So this is that second part. So this is sort of yin and yang. So you've got the seeking. Now we're actually like, okay, so people are seeking solutions. Are they really trying to solve it right now? Now, why this gets very interesting, just as a quick kind of bit of context here, is if I am hacking together some band-aid approach to solve a problem, to take care of something, and it's really quite a bit of a compromise, but it's okay, I guess. When somebody comes along with a product or service that's 10 times better, I'm like, hell yeah, I'm in. And so I don't need a lot of convincing, because I've tried my own solution and it's terrible. So let's talk about what some bad solutions might be. Great signal for you. Let's do the easy one, B2B SaaS. I think the classic here is, do they have some awkward spreadsheet with macros and tabs and links and dynamic fields and all that kind of stuff? And it's okay-ish, but as soon as it gets to mid-level complexity or multi-user, it all sort of falls apart. That is screaming for a SaaS app. But automations like if this, then that, Zapier, all of those sorts of tools. If I get 100 different things talking to each other, I kind of semi-get a result. And you turn up and say, well, we've got a SaaS application for that. Lots of manual operations in daily life. Or if you move out of the digital space, you'll see in, say, service-orientated industries like hospitality, hotels, restaurants, those kind of things. If you see these elaborate, inefficient processes of people doing things by hand, these are screaming for physical automation, machinery, and think about the assembly line and what that did for the Industrial Revolution. Well, that's the clues that you're looking for. What needs in its own assembly line in the real world. So you want to see them trying these things and they're not working well, so that when you turn up with your assembly line, with your SaaS app, whatever you turn up with, they relate to the benefit so much that you don't need to explain the benefits. You don't need to go into an elaborate ROI calculation, because they're like, you had me at hello. I know this pain is terrible. I tried. I can't do it. I got to outsource this. So what we're really doing here is getting to an endpoint where customers are seeking for solutions. They're already attempting their own, like, kind of hack together workaround. And these are like gold. Now, if you are working with customers and you're trying to figure out, Are they seeking? Are they solving? A classic moment of a red flag when you do not have problem solution fit, when you do not see evidence of seek and solve, would be classically if you're speaking to a customer and a red flag is, I don't get it. Can you say that again? Or is it like this? They compare you to the wrong thing. Often you'll see that when you explain what you're doing and they're like, oh, so you're like this. And you're like, no, we're not like this, completely not like this. Or we're just so much better than this. We're replacing that. You kind of have you've lost the conversation already. So be careful if you have real troubles just communicating, answering the question, what are you doing? What are you offering? What do you have? And you're like 3-4 rounds to get it, then that's a real problem. Another one is if they can't understand the product or the service, that tells you that they've probably not been trying to solve, right? It could also mean that they don't even see what the problem is, and that means they're not seeking. Now, another one could be that they get it and they're like, yeah, nah, meaning that I understand it, but I don't really need it. I'm okay with as it is. It's not such a hassle. And so this is a really good proxy if they're like, no, I understand it, but I can live with how I'm set up right now, because you see all sorts of things like bias to the status quo, switching costs, all of those things that come up when you're like considering an alternative. And it might be like, it's the classic thing when you see, particularly with micro SaaS right now, and you see it's like 20 or 10 or 20 bucks a month, another subscription. You're basically saying, how much of a problem is this for me? Do I really want to see that solution? So when you get that lack of urgency right there, or they're like, no, thanks, I'm fine, it's another red flag. Another red flag is if you're actually live with your product or your service and sales are very slow and they don't close without deliberate pushing through the funnel steps. So if you have to really push to qualify them, to do a diagnosis, to present a solution, or to heavily incentivize purchase if it's B2C, discount coupon, all of that sort of thing. If sales are slow, huge signal that there is some disconnect in the seek solve, in the problem solution. It's just not a big enough problem, and you are trying to create urgency every step of the way. Okay, so those are red flags. Let's talk about the green flags. I think when you sit with a customer and they say things like, this really is like a total nightmare for me trying to figure out the solution here. This is really hard for me. This keeps me up at night. In a B2B situation, this gets me hired, it gets me fired, it gets me Christmas bonus. These are the sorts of things that are green flags. You're like, whew. And what you're really hearing is a little bit of urgency, clear lack of a current solution, or what they have right now is incomplete, insufficient. So when you hear things like that, they will quickly translate into urgency, and those are great signals for you to use. Okay, so I'm going to give you a bunch of tests, and I'll give you some benchmarks of what you should and shouldn't do, what you're looking to test for, and how you can know you really have this seeking and solving happening. You have problem solution fit. Okay, so we talked a little bit earlier about what seek and solve look like. In your desk research, you should be really indexing those things that I mentioned. So Google search, Reddit comments, all of that sort of thing, any socials. You can go to Trustpilot, G2 reviews, all sorts of things there. What you're really looking for is particular thing you want to do when you're doing your desk research is look at the volume. So if you see a lot of activity around a lot of posts that are related to your product, that's a great signal. I recently worked on product just this week where we were doing seek and solve research, and it was strong upper lots of threads, lots of comments, lots of speed velocity to those comments, great volume on Google Trends, particularly when you compare it with like-minded products. You're like, oh, wow, this is a very healthy market. You might also be looking for there to start looking at some of those other indicators and triggers of urgency, such as seasonality and regulation. Okay, if you are doing your desk research, are people seeking and solving? And you're like, I can't find a lot of Reddit discussions, LinkedIn discussions. I can't find many Google results that truly do match to this. Maybe there's a pivot. Maybe you're directionally going in the right way, but you should be really open to maybe they have the problem, but they talk about it in a different way to which I talk about it. And this is particularly important because industry people often use inside baseball, business speak, industry speak, which may manifest differently for customers. So they might talk about it differently than you do on the inside. So that's desk research. If you can't find that frequency, and I would say if you are in the last 30 days not finding several posts with double-digit comments, as an example, there's already a flag that you're definitely on the wrong keyword and maybe you need to pivot. Okay, now let's move to surveys. Now, you don't recreate the data set that you just gathered in your desk research here. You want to move things along a bit in your survey. And the classic thing is, as you discover the pains and the gains that are related for your customer when they're trying to get this job done, the key thing you want to start to do is add some context to it. So the classic number one is ask them to prioritize which of these is the biggest problem related to achieving this, using this kind of a product, achieving this kind of solution, getting this outcome. What is the biggest, most hurtful, ugly pain that you face that keeps you up at night? Now, so let's say you have a use case of repairing office chairs, and the number one pain is sourcing parts. And that has like more than half of the respondents to the survey. They're like, absolutely, finding parts, biggest hassle. Then you know you got something there, because the number one pain is 50% plus of the cohort. If your number one pain and number two pain and three pain have a very even spread, you need to go deeper. You need to go deeper. You want to truly be able to isolate the biggest pain, and you want to see it really strong. It's great that you have some other secondary ones, but you really want to find confidence in your number one pain. Makes messaging so much easier. Okay, so it really starts to become about prioritizing, ranking, ordering, scoring, all of these sorts of things. Now, what you can ask in your survey, once you've kind of identified pains and gains with the problem and the job to be done, I got a bunch of questions here. How often does this happen? How frustrating is it? What happens if it's not solved? What are you using today? Have you paid for solutions before? And it goes on and on. Ask all of these. You can preload the answers and have one or two open comments. That'll just optimize survey response. But these are all great evidential signals for you to build the right thing. You can get into like frequency, severity, and some of those things. But even if you just did those off the top questions that I gave you, you'd be so well armed from your survey. So you've got a survey. Prior to that, you did your desk research. Next one is user interviews. So we're making this transition that like formal research people would call quantitative and qualitative research methods. A qual is essentially chatting, interviewing with humans. Quant, do a survey, answer get some binary data-driven results. The beautiful thing about user interviews is it's so different to the survey. You really get to ask why, and it's about loading your understanding with context, because you get to hear a customer in their own words in an open forum talking about the problems, talking about the pains and the gains, how they try and fix them, and why they're doing all this. What's the job to be done in their life? Now, what's beautiful is you can start to get into some nuance and understanding of what are the urgency drivers here. When does this come up the most? The urgency and the triggers, what caused you to start this journey? Those are so powerful because they load off the back of your desk research, off the back of your survey. You're now asking very specifically. And if you're doing a user interview, you're just like Sherlock Holmes. You're just asking questions, trying to discover. And I would use the famous 5 why method. If you're looking for that deep understanding, they say it's a problem. When this happens, why? And there's keep asking why. Tell me more. And you'll be loaded with that. This sets you up for your 4th test. Okay. So you've done a test to make sure there's enough desk research data. You've done your survey. You've done your interview. Now you can move into prototype testing. And I love this. Now, the great news is that prototypes, when I first started prototyping, you had to like be super smart and spend days, if not weeks, pre-building your prototypes to try and guess what customers may want as you iterate. Well, now, thanks to AI, thanks to the replets and the lovables and the codexes, you can build anything like in an instant. So task-based testing is really a big shift. It's where you're heavily now into the solution. It's the 4th test. You've done the first 3. It's your solution testing. Okay, so I've made a little bit of a prototype of what the solution looks like. Now, with prototype testing, the heart of it, the beating heart of it is task-based testing. I want you to book a ticket. I want you to purchase this. I want you to do a mortgage calculator. These are all tests. Now, the beauty of what you're trying to do here is, can they complete yes or no? And it can be with mock data and so forth. What you're also looking for is, over time, can you complete the time to task completion? After they've done it, you might ask an NPS, Net Promoter Score. How likely would you be to recommend this? You can get some really interesting stuff here because you're doing very, very strict. How many people completed the test? How long did they take on average and so forth? But you also get a conversation of like, oh, I was watching you at step 4 and you really seem to get stuck there. Could you tell us what that was? And they might give you something that helps you build a better product. Fix step 4 and you're off to the races. So one note here, you obviously I've spoken a lot about doing digital products, but you can do them in real life. I have used cardboard, hula hoops and tape. I would say that even you can mock up retail encounters, you can create in real life physical prototypes. You know, you've got digital printers right now, 3D printers. So yeah, anything is possible. And theater is a great way. Like you can just sit and say, I'll pretend to be the customer service person on the other line. I'll pretend to be the concierge at the hotel, and you can redesign that experience and the questions you ask. I've even totally redesigned the diagnostic process in retail stores in America for a big consumer electronics retailer. And we just changed the way people bought audio and headphones by really starting with really interesting, what music do you listen to, and tailoring a solution around that. All done, no digital prototypes there. So that's user prototyping. So what have we got happening here is a series of tests. And now I want to kind of wrap them up and say, what's kind of your minimum threshold? What would you be looking for to say you've passed this stage, the seek solve stage, and you can move to the pay and stay stage? Said differently, when do you have problem solution fit and when can you move to product market fit? I would say, as a rough guide, and this is super rough because we're spanning early and late stage companies where we're covering B2B and B2C, but just as a rule, I would say you want multiple sources with high monthly activity on your desk research of people posting, commenting, reviewing, rating around this use case. If it looks a little bit like crickets and it's very quiet, that conversation could be happening in a different way in different places. You need to go find that before you move past that. You're doing a survey. I would say 100 recipients is a bit of a rule. 10 question survey, very, very good. You can move through that when you get real consistency on prioritizations of pains and gains. Then for interviews and task-based testing, you could easily do 10 of each. And I want to give you a little hint here. You're going to get lots of very specific insight in those, particularly on the task-based testing. You'll know when you've got something, but I think a good way of ensuring you do is you could do a cohort of 5 customers in task-based testing. So you've got a prototype. Let's do one day. Let's bring the customers in, 5 customers, test all day, have a day off, improve the prototypes. Third day, you bring another 5 customers in who use the new prototype. So it's a whole new version with a whole bunch of improvements you made based on the first round. Now, if you really want to get crazy here, you can actually go and do several sprints this kind of testing, but that would give you great signal. If you think about those thresholds, monthly density in consumer seeking and solving online and Reddit and Google, 100 surveys, 10 user interviews, 10 user task-based testing with prototypes as a baseline, you've got a lot of great data from which to draw insights on what you go and build. This would really give you some confidence of seek and solve. Obviously, when we talk about pay and stay, this is really about moving into that full funnel, top, mid, bottom of funnel, from awareness into conversion, conversion into referral, and then really the mature, high growth rockets, unicorns. The third level of business model fit, I call this choose and renew. So are your customers truly choosing for you? Are they renewing and upselling and cross-selling with you? Are they telling the world about you because you're so damn good? Okay, so what do we have here? What we have is a series of things, of activities and tests that you can conduct extremely low cost to do, hugely rich in data and insight, and invariably Even if you have successfully proven they're seeking and solving, many of these insights will help you launch the product, do your go to market, build a growth system, get your full funnel working, get that flywheel effect. It will truly be there. So you have to really just be sequential and disciplined as you go about building this. Make sure that they're seeking and solving, and then you can focus on staying and paying. Because remember, the objective is not about getting something as quickly humanly possible to market. It's much more about having the confidence that you've built something that truly solves a problem. You've built something that is truly viable, because you will not only create value for your customer, you will capture the value as a business. You'll be able to price it appropriately. People will talk about you. While you're asleep, your customers will celebrate you. And before you know it, you'll be seeking another stage, which is, that whole idea of, do they choose and renew with you? And that's business model fit. That is IPO Series D territory. And that is a good place to be. Okay. So that was the simple test you can do to avoid startup failure. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you next time.